Tune in to Major League Baseball Network's new series, Costas at the Movies. Hollywood actors, directors look back on memorable baseball films. Tonight at 8 Eastern, Bob sits down with Tatum O'Neal, who played Amanda in Bad News Bears. Movie will be shown immediately following the interview. Bob joins us now. Tatum O'Neal and Amanda.
Tatum O'Neal.
Yeah.
She's really the only surviving cast member of any note. I mean, obviously they were kids, so it was the 1970s, so they're all adults now, but none of them went on to stardom, and the other big star was Walter Matthau, who passed away several years ago. So the list of possible invitees began and ended with Ms. O'Neal.
Well, wait a minute. What about Kelly Leak?
Who did Kelly Leak play?
He was the power-hitting left fielder.
Oh, that's right. You are correct, sir. You are correct, sir. And like all of his teammates, a tart-tongued youngster.
Jackie Haley, I think his name was.
You know too much about this.
Well,
you don't need to watch Costas at the Movies. Just go straight to the Bleacher feature.
If you were going to sing, well, tell me your favorite baseball movie of all time.
Bull Durham.
Do you think it captured minor league baseball?
Yeah, I think it captured minor league baseball. I think the feel of it. Ron Shelton played minor league ball, got as high as AAA, Rochester in the Orioles organization. That informs what he does. I mean, he really gets sports movies. He did Cobb, which was the first one, which we saw on MLB last week. So we had Shelton and Tommy Lee Jones on talking about that movie. But I think that Bull Durham just kind of has the feel of baseball down. It's authentic in that respect. Kevin Costner looks like a ball player, carries himself like a ball player. It has humor, and then it has a sweet, believable love story going on between Costner's Crash Davis and Susan Sarandon's Annie Savoy.
I thought Susan Sarandon was the star of that movie. Stole it. I thought she was unbelievable. I'm shocked that she did not win the Academy Award.
She was utterly irresistible. I don't know what other actresses would have been up that year, but given my affection for her performance and for baseball, I would have voted for her if I had a vote.
What are some of the other movies that you'll review? So it's Bad News Bears. You're not going to do all the Bad News Bears movies, I hope not.
No, in fact, the sequels did not have either Walter Matthau or Tatum O'Neal, so they were even worse than most sequels. And it's a question of what the MLB Network had the rights to. So we have The Natural. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk with Barry Levinson, the director, and we still have our fingers crossed that we'll be able to set something up with Robert Redford. That's the only one we haven't done yet in terms of the interviews. We did 8 Men Out, which will be shown in a few weeks, and we had John Sayles, who was the screenwriter and director, and John Cusack, who played the perhaps falsely accused third baseman Buck Weaver, and A League of Their Own. And we had both Gina Davis, who played the catcher on the team, Dottie Hinson, I think her name was, or I think so, and Penny Marshall, who directed it.
Oh, good. Talking to Bob Costas from NBC Sports. When you watched the Lance Armstrong interview,
yep,
watching as an interviewer or as a fan?
Both, and I thought that Oprah did an excellent job, and I thought that her approach at the beginning, we're going to start out with yes or no questions, just to get this part, the strict news headlines part out of the way unambiguously at the beginning, was a brilliant approach on her part. Now, with a subject this complex, could you possibly get to everything? Were there some possible follow-ups that those who are obsessed with this subject might call Winfrey on for having missed? Maybe. But overall, a fair-minded person, I think, would give her an A on this. I think she did a very, very good job.
What about Manti Te'o? I know Katie Couric got the interview, but as far as, are you more fascinated with, if I said you could have the guy who pulled off the hoax for a couple of years or Manti Te'o, who would you take?
I think I'd take Manti Te'o. I don't think I want to be in the same room with the creep who pulled off the hoax. The only thing I can think of, I said this to Jay Leno the other night, the thing it reminded me of was the New Yorker cartoon of several years ago that kind of summed up my view of a good portion of the Internet. There's a dog sitting at a computer, and the dog is pecking away at the computer with its paws, and he looks back over his shoulder at his master, and he says, on the Internet, no one knows you're a dog.
Well,
and you know what? It isn't just hoaxes like this. You know, and I know, and anyone who's ever been the subject of this knows that while there's brilliant stuff on the internet, while you can access zillions of things and it's an incredible resource, there is so much crap and so much misinformation and so many just flat-out lies floating around on the internet that it's pretty difficult to separate the wheat from the chaff.
How plausible is Manti Te'o's story? If you were doing the interview, you have to have at least an idea going in of what you believe and what you don't. How much do you believe?
Well, I'd have to do a lot more research before I sat down to do the interview because I've only followed it in kind of a cursory fashion. But it becomes difficult for me to believe that he was this naive and this unknowing. And it's hard for me to fathom exactly what his motive might have been for this. What was he hoping to gain from this? What was the upside in this? But a lot of it just doesn't add up. You've got someone who's supposedly the love of your life, but you have other girlfriends, as you would expect, a big man on campus, other girlfriends at Notre Dame. You don't attend her funeral. You don't go to visit her when she's ill. I mean, what sense does any of this stuff make?
Did you, you've been around Lance Armstrong before, haven't you?
Yes, and I've interviewed him a couple of times.
What'd you think?
Well, he was one of the great unflinching liars, no question. Maybe he just came to believe that, if not the lies themselves, maybe he came to believe that the lies were justified, that everyone else was dirty, and so what he did just leveled the playing field, and that as a cancer survivor, he was perhaps even more entitled to whatever was needed to help him level that playing field, and then in order to turn that fame into something worthwhile with the Livestrong Foundation, he further rationalized that it was okay, and he got to a point where he believed that his story was a worthwhile story, if not a true story, that in the big picture that what he was doing was something he could justify. I can only guess at that. Others people will say the guy was just so cold-blooded and so calculating that the normal cues that someone would give off if they were telling a lie or if they felt some shame or discomfort, that he could just disguise those cues because his emotions were different than the average person.
I was talking about Bill Belichick. Shannon Sharp went off on Belichick.
I loved what Shannon Sharp said yesterday.
But
loved it.
But who cares if Belichick talks to somebody after a game? Like, America didn't lose by Bill Belichick not talking.
No, but you know what? Very infrequently does someone say something that blunt, that direct, and it was pertinent, and it was true. Bill Belichick is one of the great coaches in the history of sports, not just the NFL. You know, I'd vote for him 10 times for the Hall of Fame if I could. And there's a lot about him to admire. He's not just successful, he's clever and he's resourceful, and his teams do interesting things. And from what I understand, people who are close to him say he has a good sense of humor and tremendous loyalty and all those things. But you don't have to act the way he acts so often, treating people with disdain and contempt. There's part of the job, and part of that job is to do that post-game interview. And as Shannon Sharp said, every single time he's lost, he has declined to do the interview, except one time I remember when they lost the big lead in Indianapolis and Peyton Manning came back the one year the Colts won the Super Bowl. He did do an interview afterwards with these kind of sort of mumbling responses where it was as if the person, I forgot who did the interview, but the person he was talking to had some sort of communicable disease, and Belichick didn't want to be too close to him. I mean, that whole vibe is unnecessary.
But you know how he learned this from Parcells, who learned this from Bob Knight.
But you know what? Parcells could be funny and entertaining. I mean, really funny and entertaining. And I don't remember Parcells just, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't remember Parcells just saying, no, I'm not showing up. We lost the Super Bowl, I'm not showing up.
Well, he did meet with the media. He just didn't do a one-on-one with Steve Tasker. To me, it was an inside TV story that, you know what, if that wasn't brought to light, I don't think anybody would have said, boy, I really would like to have heard Bill Belichick with Steve Tasker. He did meet with the media after the game. I mean, that's the requirement.
Which is required by the league.
Yeah.
Which is required by the league. You know, it just would have been the gracious thing to do It would have been
I
the
agree.
gracious thing to do.
But he hasn't changed, Bob. This is who he is. I've never interviewed him. I've been doing this for almost 30 years. I've never interviewed him. He just doesn't do anything.
Yeah, I have twice early on, like after they won their first Super Bowl, maybe the second. And I must say, in fairness, it wasn't a game day interview, but he was very cordial to me and reasonably open, and it was a very nice exchange. Since then, our paths haven't crossed. I don't know if I ever said anything that annoyed him. I have no idea. You can only guess. Not losing any sleep over it. I just think that he doesn't owe the world his life story, but he makes it seem as if it's just torture to have to be around any members of the press, as if this whole exercise in any form is beneath him, and as if he has contempt now for the people who are questioning him. Now, some of those people may in fact deserve contempt, and some of these questions are stupid or repetitious, or they're designed to bait the subject, regardless of who the subject is. They're not pursuing any honest information. They're trying to play a game of gotcha. There are guys like that, and you have to be more and more wary of it than ever before, so we all get that. But there are ways to deftly handle that. And a man as smart and as accomplished as Bill Belichick ought to have figured that out by now. So my gut reaction, and I respect yours, my gut reaction when Shannon said what he said was, good for him. Somebody actually said a blunt and direct thing that wasn't kind of a standard issue television thing to say.
Good to visit with you. I'll see you in New Orleans. Have fun with Tatum O'Neal. We'll be watching tonight. Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, Dan. Take care.
All right, Bob Costas, MLB. Costas at the movies tonight at 8 Eastern with Tatum O'Neal.